Z490 and Intel 10th Gen CPUs are finally here. Let's build a custom PC and show you guys how the 10900K CPU performs. G'day guys, my name is Corey and I run the Designs by FR YouTube channel. We specialize in designing and creating custom PC builds. Isn't that funny that YouTube brought you to this very video? In fact, there is a lovely red subscribe button just below the video. So if you could go ahead and click that for me, it would be greatly appreciated. Today we have teamed up with Antec, EK Water Blocks and Asrock to bring you a clean custom water cooled PC, which will be our test machine for our 10th gen Intel 10900K CPU. We will be running a few games to test FPS, as well as some CPU intensive benchmarks to test overall performance, as well as temperatures. Our most recent build actually consisted of the 10900K CPU and one 360mm radiator. Lots of people were not too satisfied about one single 360mm radiator for the new 10900K CPU because of a few heat rumors that people have been hearing. Are those rumors true though? Well, to be on the safe side, for this system, we have not one, but two EKWB PE 360mm radiators, which should be plenty for this system. The custom test PC will be housed inside the Antec P120 case, which has plenty of room to house both of our 360mm radiators. Our motherboard of choice is the Asrock Z490 Taichi motherboard, and we will be slotting in the Western Digital 1TB SN550 M.2 drive into this motherboard. Now, the Asrock Taichi Z490 board does actually have a Gen 4 M.2 slot, but unfortunately, we can't take advantage of that yet because current 10th gen CPUs do not support Gen 4, which is why we are going for the Gen 3 drive, which in itself has speeds of up to 2,400 megabytes per second. Our GPU for testing is the Asus Strix 2080 Ti, and pair that with the 10900K CPU, we have one crazy fast gaming machine. So for testing, we are going with a full custom loop. Anyone who actually does buy the 10900K CPU is probably going to be overclocking because number one, it is an unlocked CPU, and number two, they're either going to have a custom loop or going to require an all-in-one cooler to keep those temperatures nice and cool. So we're trying to mimic real-world scenarios here. One last thing that I need to touch on before we begin is the CPU will be cooled by the brand new EK Magnitude block, and we will be using Thermal Grizzly thermal paste to bridge that gap between the CPU and the CPU block. So all that is left for you to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the PC build. G'day guys, so we ran into a few issues with the loop. We've actually done 2 different revisions of the loop and we've swapped out to using 3 different pumps and none of them can actually cycle the liquid through. I thought there was an airlock in the actual pump and I tried tilting the case and everything. I could not get the liquid to get around the loop. I took one half of the loop apart and tried blowing through it, wouldn't go through, took the other half, tried blowing through it. Nothing would get through, no air, no liquid. And then I decided to test each part individually to see if there was an airlock somewhere, and I ended up taking the tubes out of the CPU block and I tried blowing through that one. I had a loose tube on the other end and it would work. And then I took the other tube out from the other port of the CPU block, I blew through that one and I could get it through. Then I decided to take the CPU block out. This is from EK Water Blocks. It's their new magnitude block. They sent it through as a review sample, so I haven't been inside it or anything. I just would assume that, you know, this would be the in port, that would be the out port. I tried blow through one side. It's airlocked. There's nothing that gets through it. And then I tried blowing through the other side. There's nothing that gets through it either. So I've been stuck here for a day and a half trying to figure this shit out. I'm very annoyed with it because this was for Z490 launch and I'm not going to get this out in time. Why? I have no idea why it's doing it. So we're going to take it apart and I hope that they just haven't put this shit in the wrong way and that's what's cost us all this time. But I'm a bit annoyed at the moment and yeah, that's all I have to say. So let's take this apart and see what the issue is. So this is exactly how I pulled this block apart. Now you can see here, all I've done is just flipped this over like that, laid it down. Can you guys see anything wrong with this? Now this is a review sample from EK Water Blocks and I'm not sure who put it together, but whoever put it together has just wasted 2 days or 1.5 days of our time. And we are not gonna be able to get this video out on time for Z490 launch. So I'm a bit annoyed about that. As you can see here, the channels run up and down like this. And there's the slit there that the water needs to go through. How is that water meant to get anywhere if it's running up and down like this and there's a slit running up and down? This should be this way like that. Because now the water goes through the slit and it can go side to side either way and then out the other port. I don't know who stuffed up but it's cost us a lot of time. So let's go ahead and put this back together, and then we should be able to fill the build. So I thought this would be a simple fix, but the way that the new EK magnitude blocks work is they actually have little tabs with symbols on them so that you can actually line up each piece to make it easy for installation. Now the problem is the CNC machining on this block has actually been 90 degrees the wrong way. These fins here should have been up and down like this, not side to side like that. So I can't simply just rotate this 90 degrees and put it back together and all is done, because the screw holes are actually not a perfect square. They're designed like that so that you do put the block back together 100% the correct way, but if the CNC machining is not done right, then this block is pretty much scrap metal. I can't do anything with this. I'm gonna have to try and get a new block, and I'm just gonna have to use a different block for the PC. So let's continue. So for today's testing, ViewSonic has kindly sent over their XG270QG gaming monitor. It's a 1440p IPS panel with 10-bit color depth. It also has a 165 Hz refresh rate, 1 millisecond response time, and G-Sync technology, making it the perfect gaming monitor for our testing. We will be running all tests at 1080p and 1440p at max settings unless otherwise stated. To start our testing today, we wanted to address the overheating rumors. We ran the system for about 30 minutes before we actually did any testing to allow for the loop to actually warm up. At the time of testing, our ambient temperatures were 20 degrees Celsius. We ran into a few issues with the frequency being consistent, so we ended up just overclocking all cores to 5 gigahertz. Our idle temperatures sat at around 24 degrees Celsius even after having some load on the system, and temperatures would still drop to the low 20s once we removed that load. We stressed the CPU on all cores to 100% load using Cinebench R20. Doing this, we saw temperatures ranging between 69 and 77 degrees, which is fairly decent for 1.2 volts, 5000 megahertz on all cores. With this overclock, however, we saw a power draw of up to 245 watts at 100% load. Moving on to performance. We fired up Cinebench R20 to stress both single core and multi-core performance. For multi-core performance, we achieved a score of 6,501, putting it just under the Threadripper 1950X. The single core performance was actually quite impressive because of its high frequency per core, receiving a score of 522. We decided to load up 3D Mark Firestrike and achieved a score of 26,148. We actually ran a multiple amount of passes to make sure that we got similar numbers, and you can see how this was broken up on screen. Times by Extreme was also fairly impressive, scoring 7,593. Now onto the gaming performance. We loaded up PUBG and tested at both 1080p and 1440p because these seem to be the most popular resolutions for gamers. 250 FPS was achieved in 1080p, 180 FPS in 1440p with ultra settings. Metro Last Light also showed similar scaling, achieving 334 FPS at 1080p and 248 FPS at 1440p. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, highest settings achieved 172 FPS at 1080p and 133 FPS at 1440p. Our last game we tested was Call of Duty Modern Warfare. At 1080p, we saw 154 FPS, and at 1440p, we saw 114 FPS. Keep in mind that all FPS shown are just averages. So guys, there you have it. The temperatures came in really good. We had some really good performance results. One thing that I do need to say though, for the 10900K, I think that it's at its end of life of technology. Definitely 14 nanometer needs to be updated. AMD's now on 7 nanometer. It's great and very impressive that they were able to keep the temperatures down. I believe this was done by minimizing the amount of surface between the die and the IHS and things like that. So really good on their part that they were able to do that. However, the power consumption is up there. And so hopefully in their next gen CPUs, we will see a bit of an improvement there on technology. After all, it has been about 5 years. So if you don't care about money and you're after overall game performance, then 100% I'd recommend the 10900K. However, if you're thinking about money, then I still think Ryzen's probably the best option for you, especially if you're going to be doing more than just gaming and utilizing those multi-cores and threads. But the game is looking interesting. It's good to see some competition with AMD and Intel. Intel hasn't had this in a while, so I'm excited to see what the future holds for CPUs. Also wanted to address the water block issue from EK Water Blocks. I reached out to them straight away after filming that part, and they got back to me straight away regarding the CPU block. Their support team is absolutely fantastic, and they're sending out a new block straight away. So kudos to EK Water Blocks for being very quick and responsive. All I had to do was show them a picture and straight away they were saying, yep, they're going to send out a replacement. So thank you very much to the awesome support team at EK Water Blocks. Also have to thank ViewSonic, EK Water Blocks, Antec, Intel, and Asrock for supplying the parts for these systems. Much appreciated, guys. I'll leave all specs in the description below if you want to go check out any of the products used in these videos. If you would like to become a Patreon or a YouTube member. It helps us out so much. It's greatly appreciated. I'll leave those links in the description. And if you would like to join our Discord, I'll leave that link in the description as well. Probably the best place you could actually contact us and ask your questions. We'll be over there actually after this video, so jump on over there if you guys want to hang out for a bit. And it'll be awesome to have you guys as part of the community. Leave that link in the description as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed benchmarks as well. We can start doing those a bit more in our custom PC builds if you guys do want them. If not, then we'll just stick to our regular time-lapse builds with a bit of talking involved. Check out more videos on the channel. Consider liking, consider subscribing, and we'll see you all in the next one.